Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. This is Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. I am joined by the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Abubakar Olariwaju Sulaiman, for discussion on deepening legislative executive synergy and independence in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us, Prof. It's so good to have you on the show. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right. So you just hosted the Women in Governance Conference, which brought together local and international rapporteur. What informed this conference?
Thank you very much, audience. Thank you very much, the moderator. The conference on women in governance was held for 2 days between 22nd to 23rd this month. And what informed the conference was the fact that, you know, after a lot of agitations, a lot of clamor, prior to the 2023 election in Nigeria, there was this intense struggle that at least the voice of our women in Nigeria has not been heard. You know, we have few numbers of women in governance and politics. We have few numbers of women in government generally. When you look at the parliament, for instance, in 2029 to 2023, we had just 15, parliamentarians in House of Rep. Then we have about 9 of them in the Senate. And the same thing applied to the various state levels. When you look at people that were fully involved in governance, both at the level of executive, at the level of the legislature, you could, count numbers of women, females that are involved in participation in terms of representation, participation in terms of having say in government, participation in terms of being elected, participation in terms of being appointed. There are quite fewer numbers of women. If we talk of democracy in Nigeria or anywhere at all, democracy is not just about the men, not just about the adults. It's about youths, it's about people with vulnerability, and it's about women. And there have been a lot of, expenditure, a lot of expenses, a lot of, fundings outlay on agitation to increase the numbers of women in politics, to increase the number of women, in governance. So we partner with a lot of donor agencies. There are a lot of CSOs, a lot of NGOs, a lot of protestations, a lot of bills were mooted in the various, chambers of the National Assembly. A lot of bills sent through the first, second. It could not go through the third reading. People killed it at the level of voting. So I think there was need, therefore, to revisit that conversation. After the election, rather than progressing forward, we now had, we now move backward. Rather than having quite, significant numbers of people in parliament. We now have just 3 senators, for instance, in Senate, and roughly 15 or 14, members in the House of Representatives. And the same thing percolates down to the state level. Without thought, look, we can't continue in this direction. We need to ask questions. Why did we get to this level? What obtained? What happened? Despite the agitation, despite the clamor, despite the advocacy, what went wrong? I think for us to now start any mobilization at all, we need to ask that question. And the question must come in form of serious academic intercourse. And that was why we convoke, with the support of the leadership of the National Assembly, we convoke that international conference to ask ourselves the question, to probe into why we got to the stage. What is the method? Is there anything they have been adopting, in this advocacy that is wrong? Do we look at the methodology? Do we look at the measure? Do we look at what has really gone wrong? And that was why we convoked that conference that saw, participants from other countries like Senegal, like Gambia, like South Africa, like Kenya, for us to really share their experiences with us on what obtains in their own clients. And quite a number of resource persons, participants, they treat in their own, presentations. The program, the event was well attended, with the Senate President in attendance, with the Deputy Senate President in attendance, with the Speaker in attendance, with a whole lot of Nigerian stakeholders in attendance, and with a lot of members of academia in attendance. I think it was a productive event, and I think we'll be able to now understand what went wrong and what next we should do.
But Prof, I mean, conferences, workshops and seminars on this subject matter are not alien to Nigeria. But what makes this latest conference different from and what age the prospects?
Conferences are not alien to Nigeria. Discussions are not alien to us. But you could actually see discussion that take the dimensions of bringing people from the ground and the people from the public together. We're able to bring people from the academias with the practitioners in politics to share experiences, to ask questions. Our major problem in Nigeria is that we make policy without tying the policy to any research work, without probing into why certain things are happening the way they're happening, without asking a question. This conference that we had was a remarkable difference because we're able to identify scientifically what went wrong, what is the problem. Unlike the previous one, where you see people, politicians being mobilized in a hall, they be shouting, they be talking. No. We need to bring people from academia to really discuss with them and identify what went wrong here and there, so that we can now know what precisely we should do as a measure of trying to really advance the interests of Nigerian women in a way that at least in the coming election, Nigerian women will not just be there as electorate, they be there as key participants in governance.
So just like you rightly mentioned, the leadership of the 10th National Assembly was powerfully represented. Does this in any way herald hope for more women inclusion?
I want to get to the question, please.
All right. So like you rightly mentioned, the leadership of the 10th National Assembly was powerfully represented. So I'm asking, does this in any way herald hope for more women inclusion?
Oh, you see, let me tell you something very interesting yesterday. 2 days ago when we had the opening. Mr. President, Senate President rather, was not disposed, going by the agenda before him on that Wednesday to attend that program. But he told me in person that, look, I am known to be an uncommon governor. I'm an uncommon minister. I want to be an uncommon Senate President, especially on this issue of women participation in governance. What stock? I want to know what stock the project in the 9th Assembly. I want to be part of this engagement. I want to be part of this conference. And I want to see it as a project that we, 10th Assembly, must really undertake and ensure that we get for women a fair shares, of governance in participation. So the difference there is that you see right from day one, the National Assembly leadership that show commitment to a project. You see a National Assembly leadership, both houses, both House of Rep and Senate, that says this is a project we must drive. Let me tell you, I wouldn't have done that without the support, without their directive, without their guidance, without their authorization. They ask us to do it. They are committed to it. And I believe in them. Even the women that attended the program, they believe in the statement of Mr. Senate President. I think we should expect a whole lot of difference this time around in terms of the way the bill will be revisited and the way the bill will be moved, and eventually we will see an impactful, law that will see more participation of women in governance come 2027 by God's grace.
Prof, this is sad to say, but many women groups are still dazed that despite intensified advocacy, all 5 bills relating to women inclusion were dropped in the last constitutional alteration exercise of the Parliament. What could have been responsible for this, and what should women do differently this time?
You see, in the course of the conference, we listened to so many conversations. We listened to so many opinions. And we now discovered that one of the problems is the approach. The approaches, are very, very wrong. And the approaches call for questions. When we share experiences from people from Kenya, from Uganda, from South Africa, we discover, for instance, that rather than talk, rather than going on the streets, rather than just, bringing in women to the hall, shouting, we can adopt some bit of diplomacy, in courting the fellowship of men. We need men. Women should not just talk about equality. We should emphasize equity. We should emphasize fair sharing. We should emphasize justice. We should emphasize, inclusion, not parity, not equilibrium. I think the approach, by talking about, we have a lot of, variables that inform why this thing is not going the way it should go. The issue of our culture is there. The issue of our religion is there. The issue of our economic is there. A lot of factors. Some part of the North, for instance, they will say, no, how can women want to share, want to show they are equal with us? So now the emphasis now is not on equality. And that is one of the message. It's on equity. So, and women are now saying that if the problem they had in the course of moving this, bill the other time has to do with coinage of words, they are ready to down tool those coinage of words and reframe the wordings. I think the methodology is one problem. The secondly, in terms of the methodology too, you cannot talk about you want to be part of governance. At the level of party politics, you are not there. That women this time around should be more involved in party politics. When you go to various political parties, you could hardly see women participating in the administration of political party. They wait till when the government is now being formed. That is not done anywhere. From the experience we share from other climes, women should be ready to start from the base. They should be ready to be part of political parties' administration. They should be more involved. If a party is boasting, of maybe 2,000 executives nationwide, we should see at least 800 women involved, so that at the level of constitutions, of executive, of administrators of the party, you can see women as treasurer, you can see women as organizing secretary, you can see them as vice chairman, so that at least they are not just occupying that of director of women affairs. So when they occupy different stratas of the party structure, so when the issue of sharing of party portfolio after election must have been concluded, they will have a say to say, yes, we are part of it. So when the men take 60%, they can conveniently take 40%. But when you are aloof, you are not part of party structures, you don't partake in what goes in the party, you wait till election comes and now want to collect from them. I think it's not done anywhere. I want to believe women constitute the majority in this country. As majority, therefore, they constitute the bulk of the electorate in this country. If that is the case, therefore, when it comes to competing and asking for a fair shares in the deals, I think they stand a chance to get what they want. But we have to really look, they have to revisit the methodology, they have to look at their style, and perhaps, see how they can tinker with the methodology they used to use before and abide with what obtains in other climes. Advocacy, yes, must continue. We have to socialize. We have to better the economic lot of Nigerian women. There we have the Women Trust Fund, for instance, that is not functioning. We must see that Women Trust Fund is functioning so as to empower our women so that they can have enough to really, dole out with when it comes to really competing with men on certain things. So the narrative now is not just about equality, but it's about equity. It's not just about trying to compete, wrestle with them. It's about trying to employ diplomacy in getting men to realize why they must give them certain shares of the national, position. It's not just about trying to fight with the husband. It's about taking your husband to a dinner and talk to the husband to say, look, my dear, why not just talk to your colleagues to consider for this thing. Our women in Nigeria, they must be ready to take us to dinners. When they do that, perhaps we are going to so some rethink.
All right. So, Prof, still talking about participation, many believe the advocacy should start from the political parties. Do you belong to the school of thought?
I think I've just said it now. Political party, they must start from the base. And one of the things we have concluded in that conference is how to bring all the political parties together, educate them on why they must see women as partners in democracy. It's one thing to advocate. It's one thing to enhance the capacity of political party structure. It's one thing to get them avail to best practices across the globe. It's for women too to realize that as a starting point of getting themselves in governance, the starting point must be at the level of political party. We have said that on several occasions. We have said that in our communique. We have agreed that the struggle, the advocacy, socialization, education must start from the political party structure.
So at the conference, speakers alluded to the marked improvement by President Bola Tinubu to give women some fair representation in his government. Is this enough?
You see, so it might not be enough, but that's a good starting point. The last time we had such a larger shares for women was under Goodluck Jonathan, when we had close to 30% in the cabinet. Since that time, the last administration gave women less than 15%. But now under Ahmed Bola Tinubu, we have close to 20%. That's a leeway. That's an improvement. And it's not yet done anyway. We still have about 3 or 4 ministers hanging. Out of these 3 ministers, we have 2 of them that are women. So invariably, we may end up having 25% under Ahmed Bola Tinubu. That is at the level of the cabinet, ministerial. There are other appointments, chief executive of parastatals, chairman of board. I want to believe the president is a feminine president who are identified with the women, and going by his pedigree and its antecedent in Lagos State, he will do more for Nigerian women. If where the legislatures, perhaps, where we have a gap in the parliament, I think the executive is trying to beat that gap now with the appointment of more women in the cabinet, and with more to come. I want to assure you in other appointments that may come in the nearest future.
Fantastic. Well, Prof, I'm sure you know there are other vulnerable groups begging for attention, persons with disabilities and the youths. How do we fight their cause? Sir,
I need to let you know that in the conference too, we brought in the vulnerables. In fact, they were active in the conference. We brought them as participants. We brought them as resource persons. They were made to present papers. They were made to be part of the engagements. They were made to be part of even the leading speakers in the conference. So it's not just about women alone, because you see, in the institute has done something during the last election. In the course of monitoring the elections or observing the election, we were looking for 3 classes of people. We were looking for the numbers of women in politics in that election. We were searching for the numbers of the vulnerables. And we were searching for the numbers of youth. That was our focus in the last election, when we were observing elections as an institute. And we are trying to now take the conversation, further with the convoking that conference. And after the conference, that brought in not just women, but people with vulnerability. Our next, dialogue session is going to be purely on the challenged people in our community. Democracy is about mass participation. It's about majority of the people in governance. If we try to marginalize, alienate, seclude, and not get this set of people involved in the administration of our society, they will not practice democracy. So it's not just about women alone. The conversation on people with vulnerability has commenced with the Institute. This time around, the leadership of the National Assembly has given us the directive to lead in the advocacy, to lead in the struggle, to lead in revisiting the projects. And it's not just about women, not about youth, but even about people with vulnerability. And that is why when you look at the clips of the conference, a lot of people with vulnerability were, key partakers in that conference. So I think it's a conversation that is ongoing, not just limiting it to women alone, but even to the people that are physically challenged.
All right. So, I mean, for better perspectives and as vast as you can, I would like us to lead us into the key outcomes of the conference. Yeah,
one of the key outcomes of the conference is, one, we have to take it beyond just mere talk, mere conversation. In the next few weeks, we are bringing all the CSO together. That has something to do with the issue of emancipation of Nigerian women, to see how to drive it. Secondly, the Senate President has asked us that they need our position paper on this, because it's going to form part of their agenda in the 10th Assembly. Then thirdly, we have identified the need for government to restructure the Women Trust Fund in a way that there will be certain amount of money allocation from the federal government allocated to that trust fund that will empower Nigerian women to be more active. Then fourthly, we need to convoke, as part of our mandate in the Institute, a lot of capacity building workshop for the political parties on the need to mainstream into whatever they do the issue of gender equity. This, among other things, are the takeaway from the conference, which the Institute is going to spearhead going forward.
All right. So, Prof, I mean, what next after the Women in Governance Conference?
What next? We have a lot of things we are doing as an institute. And as an institute that is there to enhance the capacity and promote democratic ethics, not just for adults, not just for men, but for women, for every segment of our society, we have a whole lot to do. As I'm talking to you now, this issue of women inclusivity in governance. Yes, we observe it was just an undertaking by Nigerian women. Now a whole institute under federal government is taking it up. We are coming up with a lot of motion drafting, a lot of bill initiative that will be channeled into the National Assembly, that will form part of what's going to be, the proceeding going forward. Then secondly, we have a lot of workshop, outlined for both different, segments of society in enhancing democratic practice. Then fourthly, as part of our undertaking in the Institute, we are not just, drafting bills or drafting motion or advancing capacity of stakeholders in democracy and legislature. We conduct, a lot of programs, master program, PhD program, and as such, we are commencing a program. We have commenced a program, but we are commencing at the level of master's now and PhD, something that has to do with, gender. And one of the things we agree in that conference was the need to inculcate into the younger ones gender study. So we have a whole lot of packages outlined, to promote the interests of Nigerian women in a way that they are better heard, they are better informed, and they are better engrossed in what government is doing. We have a whole lot we are working on.
All right, well done, Prof. And just like you said, discussions centered around women inclusion and leadership, women in politics and governance cannot be overemphasized. Oh, well done. So let's move on to other issues. And I would like us to talk about the impact of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. How will you describe the impact on legislature and democracy in the country?
Asking me such a question is asking me to tell you everything we have been doing and what we are meant to do. You see, the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Study is the only agency under National Assembly or even federal government charged with the responsibility of enhancing the capacity of the legislature in Nigeria, their support staff, and every democratic actors in this country and institutions. Since the inception of the Institute, we have been able to live up to our mandates. The mandate of enhancing the capacity of the legislature, the mandate of enhancing the capacity of the parliamentary staff, the mandate of educating critical stakeholders in democracy, the mandate of providing technical assistance for the legislature in the country. And beyond that, the mandate of ensuring that specialized courses in the areas of legislative studies and procedures are being taught. We've been able to do this in the last 13 years of our establishment. Yes, 1999, democracy returned back to Nigeria out of the struggle by the civilians. By the time, anytime you see the military taking over government, the major casualties of that military intervention is the legislature. So the kind of skills and maturity the executive had over the years and that of the judiciary, the legislature could not boast of that. And therefore there was this knowledge gap in the legislature. Knowledge gap in their business of legislation. Knowledge gap in their business of oversight. Knowledge gap in their business of representation. So how do we close the gap? How do we ensure that we're able to maintain some equilibrium between the legislature and other arms of government? And that was why the institute was set up in the first instance. And in the last 13 years, when the institute became an institute, proud the institute to be an institute, we had what we call the Policy and Research Project under the National Assembly as a department. It was that department that transmuted into the Institute for Legislative and Democratic Study. Since that time, we've been able to at least assist the legislature in their workings day to day. You can be a professor, you can be a messenger, you can be a carpenter, you can be a bricklayer. When it comes to legislative business, it's a specialized business. You need to learn it. You need to study it. You need to be availed the opportunity. You need to acquire the knowledge. We have been providing that knowledge over the years. Before 1999 up to now, you talk about money bags, you talk about banana peel, you talk about the push and pull within the house. Through the workings of the institute, we have been able to build up the political culture of our parliamentarians in the country. Through the assistance of donor agencies and with the support of the leadership of the National Assembly over the years, we have been able to avail our parliament elected representative knowledge about how laws are being made. We have been able to hone the skills of the legislature in the areas of oversight. We have been able to hone the skill of the various committees. Committees are the engine rooms of the parliament. We provide a lot of technical assistance, a lot of capacity building, a lot of knowledge, acquisition. We do a lot of training for the various committees over the year. We produce a lot of manuals that guide the working of the legislature. We produce a lot of literatures that guide the work of the legislature. We guide them in the areas of oversight. And most importantly, the Institute, for the past 8 years, commenced what we call postgraduate program in specialized parliamentary courses, legislative studies, procedures, parliamentary study, party politics, HND in parliamentary reporting, and a whole lot. We have been able to produce a lot of specialized, as stakeholders, actors in the areas of legislation. The Institute has lived up to its expectation that even in the area of democracy, we are partner with the electoral body. We observe, we monitor, we partner with them in coming up with a lot of ideas on how to nurture our political culture and how to nurture our democratic ethics. Beyond that, the Institute recently has floated a radio station that will serve as the voice of Nigerian people, that will serve as a bridge between the people and their elected representative. The Institute recently, too, has come out with a Center for Security Analysis that will assist the legislature in providing information on issues that borders on security, issues that borders on threats, threat analysis, threat assessment. We observe that, for instance, the legislature knows little or nothing about what goes on in the areas of security. We need to have just a department charged with the responsibility of providing the briefs, data, analysis, scrutinizing bills on issues that borders on, so that by the time they are talking about, lawmaking in the areas of defense and security, they are well informed. By the time they are trying to oversight the security apparatuses, or about what goes on in the areas of security, they are talking from the point of knowledge. So these are things we have done over the years. Let me let you know this, that our institute also conduct a lot of studies in the wake of the pandemic, for instance, the institute was the only institute in West Africa that came up with a compendium of the implications of the COVID pandemic on the political economy of our country. A whole lot of things are ongoing in the institute. Everything we are doing is to enhance the capacity of the parliamentary staff, the parliamentarians, and even the parliamentarians at the subnational level. These are key to us. We have been to advocacy on the issue of legislative autonomy, local government autonomy, judicial autonomy. We have done so much. As I said, asking me to say all this is like asking me to write a whole lot of book. We have lived up to our expectation with the support of the leadership of National Assembly. And we hope to do more because it's our duty to do it, and we must do it. Democracy must be scaled up in our country. And for us to scale up democracy, we must build the capacity of the various democratic actors in the country. And that is the essence of the Institute. Kudos to the leadership of National Assembly, kudos to Nigerian stakeholders, and kudos to the support of the press in ensuring that the Institute lives up to its mandate.
And kudos to the Institute.